I'm going to start recording now, and I'm going to pop it over to Christian. I'm going to switch him over to host. He is our wonderful village manager for the village of Milford, and he's going to go over Milford's sustainability plan. So I hope you all are excited to hear him out. We have a good turnout tonight. Last time we did a Zoom meeting, there were like literally, I think like 6 of us. So this is a really good turnout, and I'm excited to hear you talk.
I think you are the first person to ever say that, by the way.
That you're wonderful?
No, that she's excited to hear me talk.
I'm interested, but whatever.
My preface here is, this is kind of a snapshot in time with a lot of this stuff. It is, it's not exhaustive, and there's some other things that are happening at different points in time, but I was just trying to give you just kind of a general update, kind of some things that have been done, some things that are in progress, and just kind of where it's at. And I did want to leave some time for questions at the end as well. Again, I'm Christian Wuerth. I'm the village manager here in Milford. I've been here a little over 6 years now. Previously worked for the city of Birmingham in the city manager's office in human resources there. And I was involved with a lot of sustainability efforts there as well. And so some of that stuff, as I was able to, when I started the job here, was able to kind of bring some of those things in and work with staff and work with organizations that I had connections with to kind of move some things along and kind of do some things that we had been talking about for a number of years. So general kind of overview of the presentation, and I see some familiar names that have popped on, so some of you will be very familiar with some of this stuff. But want to talk a little bit about some of the cooperative efforts that we've done, some updates on recycling and kind of where that's been, and some programs that we've got there. Talk a little bit about some of the things we've done in the parks and with our urban forestry. I know a couple years ago we had PFAS, about 18 months ago. PFAS was a big topic for us out here. Just a quick update there on kind of where things stand. And then just kind of a little plug for wastewater at the end, because wastewater doesn't get much love, but it's a really important aspect of environmental stuff that we do here in the village. So from a cooperative effort standpoint, there's kind of 3 things I wanted to touch on tonight. One, which is probably the most visible to any of you that live in the village, and the township as a member as well, is in 2015, we were able to work with the Southwest Oakland County Resource Recovery Authority, and we joined that. It's a collection of local governments from kind of the south side of the county, kind of along the 96 corridor, stretches all the way to Southfield. And then we're the furthest west. South Lyon is part of it as well. But we joined that in 2015, and really kind of the driver, there were 2 things that were driving that. One, they are one of the kind of clearinghouses of knowledge in terms of recycling in the state. The director there, Mike Sapo, is probably one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to recycling that I've run across in all my time in local government, and was somebody that I had consulted with over the years, even though I had never been in a RASOC community. The second thing kind of driving that was really, looking at household hazardous waste collection. Obviously, we've got some stuff that's been paused with everything going on right now this spring, but previously the village and township partnered on a household hazardous waste collection event. Had a fairly high cost for that. There was a lower cost option available through RASOC, but it also opened up 5 other events to our residents at the time. We've since expanded that. There's a total 7 events that take place now. Wixom added another one in July that is currently the first one on the schedule for this year. But it really opened that up and allowed more options for our residents there. Also with that contract allows residents to take household hazardous waste to the actual facility, which is down in Livonia. So just kind of offered more options from that standpoint. And then we looked at really expanding service options. RASOC has always been kind of at the forefront of doing things a little bit different and a little bit, that working with partners to kind of identify new ways. Really, and a lot of what they're focused on is trying to get things out of the landfill. So trying to grab materials that would go to the landfill otherwise and divert those someplace else. And I'll get into a little bit of that in a little bit more. But kind of looking at the next thing, one of the other organizations that I've been involved with for a number of years is Michigan Green Communities. It's a consortium of local governments around the state. It's a network of growing with sustainability directors, but has really been kind of a mix of staff at all different levels and different size communities kind of coming together and talking about best practices. What can we do? what are other communities doing that we may be able to copy or build on or partner on, in a way that we can kind of offer new services or do new things in terms of an environmental standpoint, energy reduction, alternative energies, things like that. And as part of that, we've been part of their Michigan Green Communities Challenge, and each of the last 4 years have been recognized at the bronze level. That program, that Green Communities Challenge, has gone through, I think, 2 or 3 revisions in the past, and it's in the process of going through another revision now. So while we're at the bronze level now, there's going to be some new criteria, new programs that come out with that this next go around for 2020. And a lot of this stuff in the last couple of years was driven by one of the organizations that was funding that challenge program and some of the metrics that they wanted to measure across the state. So they were able to get the data they needed, and they've moved on as a funder to something else, but kind of looking at that again. And so we'll see where we land on the new one. But I've been involved in that Green Communities Challenge from the get-go, along with Michigan Green Communities. And a lot of good ideas have been able to come out of that, and just looking at how we do. And that's actually how I met Mike Sapo from RASOC, and that's kind of where our conversation started in terms of the village and township kind of joining back in 2015. One of our newer cooperative efforts is the Oakland County Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, or CISMA. And this was a group of Oakland County communities. There's nonprofit partners, and working together to just kind of work on invasive species management. And this has really been focused largely on plants, but there's also insects and other animals that are starting to get pulled in with this. And what this has allowed is really the state really only funds the CISMAs. They don't fund specific local government actions. So it allows us to kind of partner with that, achieve some levels of cost efficiency by banding together in terms of things like Phragmites management, in terms of things like education. There was supposed to be later this month, or actually this weekend coming up, I think, was supposed to be the invasive species summit that they've run the last couple of years here down at Waterford Oaks. But allowing us to do things like educating the public and talking about tracking and identifying invasive species. And then we've also partnered with the Road Commission through the CISMA to be able to treat Phragmites in right-of-way of roads. So being able to kind of start managing that in a little bit better fashion. The CISMA, in partnership with a couple other organizations, one locally is the Huron River Watershed Council that affects the village, but they were able to get a grant collectively last year through a cooperative effort to help manage European frogbit, which has been found in Novi. They've also got the invasive red swamp crayfish in Novi. And so through the CISMA, we're able to kind of track that, see where it's at, see if it's getting close to the village, and be able to react to that. But right now it's still further away from us, but we're able to tap into that data and kind of work with other communities on that management. So looking at recycling specifically, in 2016, Village Council looked at an extension of the existing agreement with our hauler at the time. They were bought by Green for Life, GFL, shortly thereafter. But that extension was really kind of driven at 2 main things. One was kind of locking in what we had was a low price for the cost of service, and we were able to lock that in for another 5 years with minimal increases. But the big thing kind of driving it, at least for me, was the option to be able to offer a 64-gallon recycling cart to residents at no cost. So, when we look at things like recycling, most communities started off with the 18-gallon totes, and that promotes recycling. But generally, the research has shown if you make recycling a lot easier, you offer a larger collection cart or, like the 64-gallon cart, the recycling rates are going to go up. And so we wanted to encourage more recycling. So we worked with RASOC and worked with GFL to be able to launch that program shortly after that extension was completed. As I said, with RASOC, we were able to allow the expanded number of household hazardous waste collection events. Not really mentioned in here with RASOC, one of the things that was, from my standpoint, helpful was because RASOC actually owns the facility where the recycling is. So on your recycling day, yesterday we had recycling collected in the village. Everything from that pickup gets trucked to the RASOC facility in Southfield. So we're able, as a member of RASOC, to collect that data on a truck-by-truck basis. So we can look at, from time to time, I'll get somebody that'll call and say, hey, this garbage truck was going through my neighborhood and picking up, recycling and throwing it in the garbage truck. I'm able to go back and track through with RASOC and see were our weights out of whack for that week, or were they where they're supposed to be. If it's one truck or two trucks, we may not be able to catch that. But if it's pretty consistent where they're throwing all the recycling into a garbage truck and taking it to a landfill, that's going to set off a series of red flags for us, and we're going to be able to go back and track who that driver was. So from that standpoint, for me, from a management perspective, it's helpful to be able to have that data from RASOC. In 2016, we were able to work with RASOC, and they piloted. I said RASOC kind of pushes the envelope on things. They were the first organization to partner with a company called Simple Recycling, and it's a logistics company, and they had noticed in their work with other organizations that there was a lot of clothing and textiles that were either perfectly good and could be reused, or were beyond use and were going to the landfill, even though they were able to capture those and repurpose those and recycle those. So, while a lot of us do contribute, unwanted clothing to, whether it's community sharing or Purple Heart or Goodwill, those materials are reused. There's a whole lot of other materials that just go in the garbage. You've got that pair of jeans that just kind of wears out, and you're like, nobody's going to wear these. You throw them in the garbage. Through Simple Recycling, we're able to have, residents put those in those orange bags, put them out on the curb on trash collection day. Those get picked up, and no matter what shape they're in, they're able to recycle those. They use it for fiber fill for furniture, as well as carpet padding are two of the big kind of users of that. So it allows us to capture things that would otherwise go to the landfill and divert that from the landfill and come up with a creative reuse for that. And it's another service that we're able to offer to the residents in the community. So, and it's at no cost whatsoever to us. So, there's no additional cost for that. We're able to offer additional recycling. So as we look at kind of the numbers, the village has typically been a pretty good recycler as a community. You see here in the blue is the blue bars, at least they're blue on my screen, are the village recycling rates, and the orange line at the bottom is the 15% line. That's where Michigan's average recycling rate is. So pretty low. 35% is the US average recycling rate. And as you can see, we've consistently, at least the last 4 years, this is where I talk about data from RASOC, we're able to track this and see what is our recycling rate, how much is going to the landfill, how much is going back to the recycling facilities, compost facilities, household hazardous waste. And so we're generally in that high end range of the communities. 2017, we see a little bit of a dip. I'll show you how that kind of breaks out in the next, but generally we're a fairly high recycling rate community. And really kind of breaking that down, the blue is the recycling that is actually going to the recycling processing facility, the material recovery facility. The orange is the yard waste. You see a little bit of a dip in 2017, and that's really kind of where we saw that dip in the overall recycling rate, was with that yard waste collection being down a little bit. But again, kind of everything back. You look at the blue line with what's going to the material recovery facility, that's generally on a steady decline, kind of leveled off the last couple of years, but again, pretty high rate. And this is in tons total. So, we're looking at, about 400 tons of material a year that are going to the recovery facility. So those are your cans, your bottles, your paper, and things like that. One of the other things that, again, kind of pushing the envelope and trying new things, a couple of years ago, RASOC decided to look at a recycling directory and coming up with technology to be able to allow people, one of the big questions is, can I recycle that? And so one way to answer that is to build an app, to build a back-end technology that allows people to type in something and it will tell you. So if you type in a cardboard box, it'll tell you if this is a cardboard box you got from Amazon, you can put that in the recycling bin. If it's a cardboard box that you got pizza in and it's got grease on the inside of it, that's something that goes in the garbage. And the reason for that, is so that, we help kind of maintain a high quality product on the back end. So when the materials go to the recycling facility, they're sorting through, and if there's contamination in there, the ultimate buyers of that material can reject that material. And so RASOC has generally had, from RASOC communities, a fairly high quality of material that goes through. And so even though you see a lot of things in the news with recycling, rates being increased for communities and things like that, a lot of that has to do with the quality of the material that's going through. So, and you'll see it throughout this year in 2020, there's going to be a push to kind of even keep that up. We have good quality material now, but to try to keep that up and improve it even more. So because at the end of the day, that kind of helps with, helps keep the recycling rates low and collection costs low on our end and that sort of stuff. So last year, early 2019, took this from, it was originally a web app, and it's available on the Village website. It's available on the RASOC website. We're able to take that. It was developed as an app for your phone, so you can download it on iPhone, Android, but also you can download an app for Alexa. So as my kids like to do, they can ask Alexa if something can go in the recycling bin or not. So kind of a neat thing. And again, just something, try to make it as easy as possible for people to recycle and get as much material as we can into that recycling stream. So for me personally, I'd love it if one day we were above 50%. In my time with RASOC, there was one year where Farmington was like at 50.2 or something like that, but everybody's generally in that, the higher end recycling communities have generally been in that 40 to 45% range, which is kind of where we're at. So we're one of the higher levels there. Kind of shifting gears from recycling, looking at some of the things we've done kind of environmentally. If you've been in Central Park the last few years, you've noticed that there's some plantings that have been springing up along the river, as well as along Pettibone Creek. That was a deliberate effort on the part of our Parks and Recreation Commission. Back in probably about 2015 or so, they started talking about different things that could be done in the park, came up with a Central Park plan. Some of that called for native plantings along the river, and it's really kind of aimed at a couple different things. One is to help control runoff. Two is to, when this stuff grows in and it gets pretty thick, the geese don't really like going through the brush. They're worried about predators. So it's another way to kind of long-term kind of come up with a solution to help keep the geese out of the park, at least somewhat. And then, there's obviously the factor of adding native plants to an area, rebuilding, reestablishing that riparian zone. So you look here, and the one picture is the before, second picture is the after in 2016, shortly after the plantings were done. And then if this goes, this is the next year. So this is 2017 once things kind of came in. So pretty substantial change in how that worked. The original plan was to kind of go back every kind of an even numbered years and add to that. We've got some other projects in Central Park working on right now. And then obviously with stuff going on, ended up canceling the event for this year, but we'll probably look at again next year, going back in and doing some additional plantings. So followed up that 2016 planting and expanded it further to the west and kind of into the park a little bit with native plantings and kind of continuing along the river from that standpoint. So we did get in 2016, we got a small grant from a wildflower nonprofit in Michigan. I think it's the Wildflower Association of Michigan. So we were able to work with them and then work with Wild Type Nursery out in Mason, which is a native plant nursery. And we were able to work with them to come up with an appropriate list of plants and kind of the mix for each of the locations. So, as we go through, we'll start splitting some of the plants. We'll start adding new plants into the mix, adding more trees into the mix, and doing some of those things to kind of build that up. And the idea is to have that riparian zone really along all the stretches of the river and a good chunk of the creek as well, wherever we don't have access points and other things that are in there. So, where we're not, where we don't have plans for launches, or we don't have plans for canoe and kayak landings, view shed accesses and things like that. The idea is to have as much native plantings in there as we can. So, and it helps a lot with the erosion as well, because as you know, the roots go a little bit deeper on these and they're digging for water. So they've done incredibly well. Something else that Parks and Rec has done predates me by a long time, but they've been doing spring and fall tree plantings in Central Park and some of the other parks. So this is back from last fall, where a number of trees were placed in Central Park, last spring, I should say. A number of trees were placed along Pettibone Creek. So mix of native and then some other plants that, some other flowers and things like that to kind of help, again, with the erosion and some pollinator habitat and some other things in there as well. We've also, 2016 was a busy year. We also got a grant from the DNR that year to be able to do a street tree inventory and assessment. And so we were able to have contract foresters come in, look at every street tree in the village, decide what kind of health those trees were in, look at what the species mix was, look at whether we were overplanting certain species, underplanting other species, whether we had certain areas in the village where we had a large number of trees that were susceptible to disease or infestations, and really kind of start to manage that in a little bit better fashion. And so that led to some revisions to the tree ordinance, and then we have a tree board that kind of helps oversee the street tree plantings and that. So it led to some revisions there. We used that information and determined that we had an overabundance of maple trees, an overabundance of pear trees, and an overabundance of honey locusts. And so we were able to kind of take those out. We don't plant those very often anymore. And so we were able to use that information, applied for a grant in 2019 from the DNR, through the DNR, but it's funded by DTE, to be able to plant trees. And it was probably one of the bigger street tree plantings we've done in a number of years. We actually ended up planting over 50 trees at the end of it. But we looked at 10 species of trees, and a lot of these, some had been used in parks, some we had never planted in the village before. In terms of a formal planting, I'm sure some residents had, but we had never really used them as street trees. But working with our forestry consultant, we were able to come up with a good mix of trees that were sort of what they call the right tree, right place. So looking at, if we have overhead wires, we're going to plant a tree like a redbud that, maybe isn't a traditional street tree, add some color, add some mix in there, but it's a relatively small tree and it's not going to need to be trimmed when it grows to the point where, it's interfering with the wires. It's just not going to get that big. So we were able to plant trees in places where we may not otherwise be able to do so. And the goal there is to kind of maintain a strong tree canopy. And then again, kind of that species diversification so that if we do have something come through, like an emerald ash borer or something else, it's not going to wipe out every tree in the village. PFAS, this was obviously something that got a lot of attention back when it first hit in 2018. We were notified at August of high levels of PFAS in the Huron River, and further upstream in Norton Creek, they were able to trace that back to a facility in Wixom. The state issued do not eat advisories for both fish and foam. Not sure who was eating the foam beforehand, but that one always kind of was a head scratcher, but somebody must have. But so they issued those do not eat advisories. Those are since become at least permanent for the near term. But we reacted pretty quickly with that. So reached out to the Huron River Watershed Council, reached out to the state. We were able to partner with those two organizations as well as the city of Wixom and Milford Township. And back that fall, I think it was in October of that year, we were able to host the public forum where people could come in from the public, had a really good dialogue with the state, with the Huron River Watershed Council, just on what the impact of this could be, what was being done to mitigate it. Right after the tests indicated the high levels, Village Council talked about this and we started testing on a quarterly basis. Even though the drinking water in the village doesn't come from the river, it comes from the ground, we wanted to be proactive. And so we've been testing on a quarterly basis. We've had no detections to date. Our testing standards actually are in excess of what the state requires us to do on that front. We're only required, I think, once every other year to test. We're testing, 4 times a year. Like I said, there's a couple times where they'll come out and pull a sample at the same time we are, and those tests have all come back with no detections. So they were able to identify the source in Wixom, work with them from the state level. The city of Wixom has been working with them. Levels have dropped substantially. The last time I saw numbers, they were still above the threshold, but they were down. They were in the thousands before, and they were down into the double digits. I mean, it was a pretty dramatic decrease once they're able to get some of the filtration systems online. So they're still working on it. We get updates, just not as often from the state. I know when they did test this last time, kind of in the Mill Pond area, it was virtually a non-detect. I think they might have had one that hit at a very, very low number. So as it relates to the river down on our stretch, it's gone, the quality has gone back up in the water quality standpoint. Wastewater, like I said, this is, and I don't know, I think a couple of you at least got a chance to go out to our wastewater treatment facility a while ago and kind of see what's going on out there. This is my chance to just plug any chance I get. There is no such thing as a flushable wipe. If you are flushing wipes, you're tempting fate because it's probably going to get caught in the roots or in the pipe leading out from your house and can cause some nasty backups there. But it also causes issues on our end. So it causes issues with equipment downstream, causes issues at our wastewater treatment plant. A lot of those have, I don't know if you've had talks in the past about like the microplastics and that sort of stuff. A lot of those products, the reason they're not flushable is they're reinforced with with plastics. And so they don't break down as easily. And when they do break down, it doesn't quite break down the way paper and other things will. From that standpoint, spread the news, I guess, but nothing goes down the pipes that's not supposed to. So, and I just wanted to kind of end before we get to question and answer period here. Got some links in this presentation. I can send this to you guys too, so you've got it. But got a couple of website links. So villageofmilford.org/residents just takes you to a resident page. It's kind of a landing spot for a lot of information for anybody that lives in the village. The /recycle page takes you right to the recycling page and the recycling directory, information on those programs. The /environment page takes you to kind of, our stormwater programs. I didn't touch on it a whole lot here, but we do have stormwater programs in place. We're monitoring things when they go out, where the outfalls are into the river. And we monitor that pretty heavily. And we've got a permit that we're working with the state on. We're waiting on some stuff from Oakland County. Then we do have a page where we've been putting the PFAS information just as we get updates, as we get new test data on our drinking well system, we're putting that up there as well. So I think the last test I've got up there is December. I don't think we've got the March back yet, but December is probably the last test up there. And then the RASOC website. So with that, happy to take any questions that there might be.
I'll start if you want, but I know like we have a lot of like the tree planting, the native species and work days like that. And is that something that the community can do to help boost our rating for that Michigan Green Communities? Is there anything we as community members can do to help our village up in that rating?
Yeah, so I think with the green communities in particular, I think, it's like I said, it's going through a revision now, and I don't know quite what it's going to look like. The version that existed prior to what we have now was actually put together by some students at University of Michigan that were graduating. I forget what the program was, but they were the program that they were in, and it was a pretty elaborate process. I think there was something in the neighborhood of like 300 questions. Mm-hmm. So when we revamped it in 2015. I think it was 2014, 2015, we revamped it and we took it down. It was like 30 questions or something. I mean, the idea was we were trying to get communities to sign on and just be able to start taking steps to do something and then kind of get in. And then the communities that were, Grand Rapids has a fairly large sustainability office. They've got, I think, half a dozen staff, something like that. They're able to do a lot more things. So we looked at those types of communities. Ann Arbor's another one that's got a pretty robust sustainability office, looking at those communities and saying, you're always going to be able to do more than Milford's going to be able to do. So if you're going to be at that high level, you've got to come back and kind of work with these other communities, kind of mentor them along and offer some of those resources. And so that's worked pretty well. We'll see where it goes. I mean, there's some different things. That's a program that over the years has shifted. There's not a whole lot of funding that's come from dedicated sources. So it's been, going for grants when we can. The Urban Sustainability Directors Network was one of the early funders of the network. And then the Mott Foundation funded it for a number of years while they were trying to get some dollars out there for sustainability and kind of see where communities were at. They've kind of changed priorities around. Up until this, we were kind of looking at, maybe getting some state funding that would dedicate specifically towards like energy reduction and waste management, that sort of stuff, to kind of help communities boost recycling rates to do things like energy efficiency projects. So the question is, when do we anticipate the village will have recycling cans together with trash cans on Main Street? One of the issues that's kind of come up with these in the past, and not necessarily here, it's been in other communities, is that there tends to be a lot of contamination in there. So you get people that walk by and they just see a can and they throw whatever in it. So you end up with you almost have to have somebody on the back end that's kind of sorting through stuff. They're getting better with the design of those facilities. And I know this came up when we were going through, actually, I think three of you on the call here brought it up when we were talking about our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And so the Parks and Recreation Commission and Council incorporated recycling cans in the park system as part of the master plan there. So we may look at doing some pilot programs. We've looked at some stuff in the past. Some of the stuff has been sponsored. There was one a couple of years ago. I think it was Pepsi was sponsoring it. And on the surface, it's a good program, but then you've got Pepsi logos all throughout town as a part of that. So, it's trying to do something where we're moving it forward, but not necessarily making everything overly commercial either. So it'll be at some point, and I think it's just a matter of, I've had conversations with Mike Sapo at RASOC about piloting different things like that. Piloting, at one point, we were looking at some other kind of creative ways to incorporate recycling into downtown and that sort of stuff. But, we'll see kind of where things shape. I mean, that conversation was back in late fall. So, probably not something for this spring, but, once things kind of loosen up here and we get back to a little bit closer to normal, we can start having those conversations again.
Hi, Christian. Question, just a little off subject, but will there be any kind of a tree program for the Peters Road project for all the good things trees do, but also for speed calming?
So we're getting ready to start paving on Peters Road in a couple weeks here, May 4th. Thanks, Sybil. The design for that doesn't call for trees to be planted as part of the construction project, but that was somewhat intentional. We've got a limited number of funds available for road projects, and we didn't want to take road money and direct it towards trees. So we do have a separate line item in the budget for trees, and so we'll probably look at something in the fall. It won't be right away when the project's done, but we'll look at something probably in the fall to go back and pop some trees in there. And again, like you mentioned, Mark, the traffic calming aspects of that road is going to look a lot different than it does today. I know Sybil's been paying attention to that. So, but it's going to be a residential design for the road. It's a pretty narrow road. We've got sidewalks along both sides, but yeah, the goal is to go back and be able to put trees in after.
I had a couple of questions. One, just quick thought on the slide you showed with the recycling over the years, Milford compared with the state. I'm wondering if the state's numbers are low. Do they take into account that we have, bottle deposits? Like some people would just throw their, in other states throw their soda pop, in recycling, and we take ours for deposit. So I'm just wondering if that was factored into that.
Yeah, those are just industry standard numbers. So I don't know what they're, if they're taking into account, that those, if they're counting that towards Michigan's average or not.
Okay.
We're better than both averages. So
something I might pursue that I just thought of. And then I was wondering, I live in the township, so I'm wondering if there's a partnership between the village and the township as it relates to recycling programs and the collaborative, the group effort that you have to save money with the two groups you mentioned.
Oh yeah, so through RASOC, so the township is a member of RASOC. They did join at the same time. I think probably the biggest difference between the two, we've generally done a joint contract. So at least for the last few years, when we did the extension, they did an extension as well. We've collectively bid those out in the past. And so I anticipate when 2021 rolls around, we'll collaborate on that as well. I think there's one other RASOC community that's up then as well. So we'll partner with them if we need to as well. So that's part of the advantage of RASOC is, there's a mix of communities. GFL and Waste Management are the two big ones in the area, and they handle most of the communities. But because we're fairly small, right? We're 6,400 people.
Right.
We're not one of GFL's biggest. We're not we probably don't even really register. When GFL bought Rizzo, the head of the company came from Canada, came in and met with us because Southfield has GFL and a number of other larger communities have GFL as well. So we're able to kind of use RASOC to be able to get that seat at the table to have that conversation, talk about service, talk about some of the priorities we had in terms of increasing recycling and that.
Because I wasn't
conversation. It's as simple as, like the yard waste, they canceled it. We're going to pick it up. We were able to work with RASOC and get it kind of back in place, and they only missed a day and it didn't affect us at all.
Wow. That's a good thing. Yeah. Because I was not familiar with the big green containers. We don't have those in the township yet.
You can get them in the difference in the township is you have to pay for them in the township, and it just really has to do with how in the village we levy a tax. So there's a property tax that covers trash collection, recycling, all that. In the township, it's a fee-based service. Okay. So because they wanted to keep the fee low, You know, and we've got the commercial pickup side of things too. So because of efficiencies on that side of things, we're able to kind of to pull that stuff.
You answered my question. Thank you. Good presentation.
Hey, Christian.
Yes.
I live in Commerce Township. I just have a couple of questions for you. I don't know if you'd be able to answer, but is Commerce Township part of that RASAC?
No, Commerce is not.
Okay.
And I think Milford Township is the only township right now.
Okay. And because we're not, does that mean like when Wixom and the other places have their hazardous waste kind of drives where you can drop off stuff, we're not allowed to drop off stuff at those, right?
Technically, the answer to that is no. There are people that come in, and generally what happens is RASAC will send a bill back to whatever community is, and usually they pay. Oh, and just a comment in the chat about the simple recycling and the not necessarily reusable. That was kind of one of the advantages of that. And we had a lot of questions when we first worked with RASAC to launch that simple recycling. Was, you know, is this going to hurt things like, you know, community sharing, like Goodwill? And the answer to that is generally the data that they've been able to track is that the donations have either stayed the same or they've gone up, because what it's doing is it's pushing out that this stuff shouldn't go in the garbage. And that was really the big point with that, was stop throwing this stuff away, because whether it can go to a Goodwill or a community sharing, if it can do that, by all means, send it there. But if you've got the, you know, like I said, if you've got the jeans that are shredded and you're like, nobody can wear these, throw them in the orange bag, put them out by the curb, and it's able to get recycled. So it's real good. It's a good program. I know we use it quite a bit with two kids that run around and pretty much shred everything. So, but
so a little bit more about that simple recycling, because we're kind of new to the community in the last couple of years, because I thought it was any clothes and that it would go toward toward people that could use it. I didn't realize it would be everything that you put in that orange bag is shredded then. And
no. So it actually goes through, it's sort of a tiered process. So what they'll do is they go through, it goes back to their facilities. They will actually sort through it. So if there's stuff that is reusable, they will use that, and they'll go through whatever mechanism they go through, so that if, you know, somebody wants to wear them, they can wear them. But if a lot of what they really try to push is, you know, first donate that stuff, right? So we're just trying to keep it out of the landfill. That's the goal. So the goal there is, you know, if you can donate it, donate it. If you can't, or if you don't want to, put it in the bag. They'll sort through it. If it's able to be reused, they'll go that route. But if it's able to be recycled, they'll go that route as well.
Okay.
So the idea is that they're capturing, I forget what the amount of tonnage was that gets thrown away in terms of clothes going into the landfill, but it's ridiculous. So the goal with that program was to just kind of, they saw an opportunity to capture stuff that was going to the landfill, recycle that, but then they can also repurpose just like it would if it went through community.
All right. I guess I thought it was all repurposed in terms of going to someone that can use it, versus I didn't know they would actually shred stuff. I just want to make sure, you know, if I put my
if it's nice enough for somebody to use.
Yeah, because I've been putting in stuff that's nice for people to use. I kind of have this idea that people that go to use these used clothing want nice things too, you know.
Yeah.
So
the company itself, how they got started is it's actually a logistics company, and they were running the logistics for one of, I forget which one it was, excuse me, but they were running the logistics and actually picking up for one of the charitable organizations. So that charitable organization never actually, all they did was cash the checks. So the materials would get collected, it would go, and this company that started Simple Recycling would actually arrange for the calls. They would go pick it up. They would actually sell the materials to the marketplace, and you know, whether it was going to Goodwill stores or, you know, whatever. And then they would send the money back to that charitable organization. What they noticed is there was a lot of stuff in their materials that there was no reuse for. And so they started looking at the numbers and saying, not only is there stuff that we're getting from this process that can be used or recycled in a way, there's stuff that's going to the landfill that could be recycled that way. And so they launched this program. And they don't, the communities where they operate, they don't charge the communities. It's just a service that they, RASOC gets a small amount of funding on the back end of things, and that helps offset the cost of recycling and everything else. It's not much. It's a couple, I think it's $1,000 or $2,000 a year, but.
I'm delighted with the simple recycling, and I'm sure Sybil is too, because we're fiber artists, and although I try to use up every scrap, there's still stuff left over. And I love that, every month or two I put out a bag just full of scraps marked that way. So Christian, my question was, has anyone, I know that the village's representative to the Watershed Council hasn't been able to be very active, and I've been trying to recruit someone that could participate more. Has anyone approached you about it?
Kind of. Rebecca and I had a conversation, I think it was like the day before all the shutdown happened, about a number of things. So yeah, I've been in touch with Rebecca. We've had some conversations about trying to identify a local representative for that. So got a couple people in mind, but yeah, I mean, I've been pretty active with the Watershed Council since I've been here. And the village, we have a good relationship with them.
The Village Wastewater Treatment Plant, have they been able to do any studies on the microfibers in the Huron?
No, in terms of the microplastics and that?
Yeah.
No, we haven't. I know we've got a fairly old filtration system out there. It's actually getting replaced this summer. And that was one of the things that will help hopefully with that, is we'll be able to capture more of that before it goes in the river. But the systems that exist in most places, I mean, and I don't know if you guys have had that as a topic in the past, but most of the stuff, when you do laundry and it's like, I've got my recycled fleece on right now. I mean, but there's stuff that comes off when that gets washed every time. And, it goes through the wastewater process and it doesn't all get captured, and it ends up in the lakes and rivers. And
the Watershed Council's been doing studies on it. They're kind of freaked out with this shutdown too. That there's.
Yeah, and we've talked with, we talked with the Watershed Council just about overall water quality and looking at ways we can monitor that better. I've had a lot of calls the last couple of years about, what seems to be increases in the amount of algae in Central Park and in that stretch of the river. And just looking at that, I mean, we know what's coming out of our outfalls for stormwater because we're testing that, so there's some things upstream that may be causing some of that stuff, and trying to work with other communities and other partners to try to identify that and get that water quality up. I know the Watershed Council had a project in Wixom on Norton Creek kind of aimed at, improving oxygen levels, improving biodiversity in the creek there. And that has downstream ramifications, positive ones. And so we're looking to partner where we can on things like that. Unfortunately, we've got places upstream of us and we don't have control over what they're doing or what they're putting in the water. So, we can try to partner where we can, and we hope to do that. And the Watershed Council has been a huge partner with that. So we've been talking about different things, and hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll be able to pull some of these things together.
So I think we're going to end the Q&A unless there's anything pressing from anybody else. I thank you for your presentation. I think it was great. It was, you can see all the claps. It was clap, clap. It was good. Tiffany, we're going to pop this over to her.
Thank you, Christian. That was great stuff. And please definitely let us know as things come up when we get back to a little bit more of a normal day-to-day. Let us know if there's anything that we can help you out with, of course. So we're just going to take a few minutes and walk through some of the latest with EcoHV. So one thing that I wanted to mention, I know some of you were able to join, but last Friday was the Our Changing Climate virtual art show. So this was something we had originally planned to do in 2 galleries, one at the Huron Valley Council for the Arts and one in Brighton for the month of April. And plans changed a little bit. So we do have a virtual gallery. So we're very excited about that, being able to share these great works of art well beyond the walls of the gallery. So these are just a few examples on the screen. And after the meeting today, we'll send out emails so you guys have links. But a couple things, so there were 2 parts. Friday's show was the gallery opening, where we had 3 artists. It was about an hour-and-a-half event, and they talked about their art in a little bit more detail, and then offered a little online art lesson. So that was great. The second part is then the kind of self-guided virtual gallery. So you can click in and see all of the artwork. We had both the adult and the kids categories, and then you can click. Certain artists provided us with a little video clip sharing a little bit more detail about their work. So that's great as well. So please check that out and share those when we send those links out. The other thing that we have going this month is the plastic pollution petition, and this is open through April 30th. And if you have your phone handy and you have not signed this already, you can pop your phone up on the camera view and it should click you into the open petition. This is good for both adults and kids. So we also have through our website, you can access a document we've pulled together. So there's a couple different things going on. The first is the plastic petition, which is really just trying to focus and let all of the leaders know in Lansing that this is something that's very important to us, both adults and kids. So kids are welcome to sign this. We have a homeschool lesson in there that talks a little bit about petition and how a bill becomes a law. Of course, the dangers of plastics, and then persuasive writing, so they can write to their family members to get them to convince them to sign the petition. But there's a lot of great legislation right now to end the ban on plastic bans. There's been new legislation to expand the bottle bill. So the petition is really speaking to those things of helping to reduce the plastics by taking the ban on the ban away, expanding recycling with the expanded bottle bills. And then we were just talking about filters at wastewater treatment plants. So that's another area of interest that we'd like to let them know we're looking to explore. So we're about halfway to our goal of 500. It is open through April 30th. So again, please sign it. Every member in the family can sign it, and then forward along to your friends. Sticking with plastics, we also have the plastic pollution solution team call. So this is something outside of EcoHV that I am hosting. So if plastic pollution and finding a solution to that is a passion of yours, please contact me. So my email is gobluegogreen@outlook.com. The meeting will be held next Wednesday, April 28th at 3 p.m. And there's a lot of different people from different organizations that are all sharing the same fight. And we just want to make sure we're not each reinventing the wheel, but kind of sharing what we're doing. I know with EcoHV, we've talked about plastic-free July and working towards that. So we'll be talking a little bit about that and what we might be able to do, even if it needs to be from more of a virtual format. And then I'll hand over if Deidre, you want to share a little bit about an Earth Day cleanup update.
Yeah, so obviously we couldn't do our Earth Day cleanup that was scheduled for this past Sunday because of the whole shutdown and everything. So we did put together this little infographic that we shared on social media, just so if people wanted to pick up trash, because there is, like you guys were noting before the meeting started, there's a ton of trash out there that people just throw out of their cars and when they're on the go. And if you want to help out and pick up before we can, you know, schedule something together, it would be great to do. We're looking probably to reschedule sometime in the summer, so be on the lookout for that. You know, it's a big passion of mine to pick up, and I really want this event to happen. So if all goes well, hopefully we could do it sometime this summer, you know, in the thick of everybody's outdoors time and throwing stuff out on the roads. So look for that in the future.
The other thing we wanted to touch on is Earth Day celebration. So happy Earth Day, everyone. I know there was a lot going on today if you're online at all. So we just wanted to mention a few that are still happening over the next couple days. So earthdaylive2020.org is running an event. It's actually 12 hours a day. So 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern each day, the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. So they have, today they had a yoga session, lots of different activists speaking. So definitely check out, if you go to earthdaylive2020.org, you can see the schedule and see if there's something that you'd like to tune into. WITS, which is a local nonprofit, Whatever It Takes sanctuary that we work closely with. They had, you may recall, the Earth Day Challenge that was originally scheduled for April 25th that we are looking to reschedule tentatively for June 6th. We may need to revise that to later this summer. We'll keep going day to day on that. But what we have launched in place is a virtual Earth Day Challenge. So that began today, will run through Saturday. It is on Facebook where you can access. So every day at 10 a.m. Live, there'll be a quick little live update, and then they'll share some activities for the day. This is targeted towards younger, kind of elementary-ish age kids, early middle school. So today's theme was nature. Tomorrow will be about reduce, reuse, recycle. The 24th, Friday, will be Healthy Planet, Healthy You, and then we'll close with a day of action. So you can check that out on Facebook at WITS Sanctuary. And then the recyclingpartnership.org, they also have some activities going if you want to check out their site. One of the big things is a thank you to all of the people that work with recycling and pickup and making some signs for the house or yard. They also have some other things on the list if you'd like to check that out. And then the last one we wanted to mention is Kalamazoo Earth Day. So they had also had a very large festival planned and have moved as much online as they can. But a lot of it is pre-recorded. So there's some great videos on the history of Earth Day and kind of where that started 50 years ago, where it is now, different kind of lectures and things like that. So that is definitely something we'd encourage checking out. And that's at KalamazooEarthDay.com. And again, we'll send out in our meeting recap links to all of these items as well, so you can check them out. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Ren. At our meeting last month, I know she mentioned briefly the importance of gardening as we're dealing with this pandemic right now. So she's going to share a little bit of an update on the Garden Relief Initiative.
Thanks, Tiffany. Hi, everyone. Happy Earth Day. It's a pity that we're not all outside able to do something, but I think through this meeting, we're making absolutely the best of it. I wanted to take some time to just talk about the Garden Relief Initiative. This is a program that the organization, nonprofit organization that I work for, created for this community. I work for Hazon.org. And what we quickly realized when COVID-19 arrived on our doorsteps was that there was going to be a food scarcity. We began doing food rescue. We worked with caterers, we worked with schools, we worked with plants, warehouses down in Detroit, trying to rescue food and get it to people in need. But when those dried up, we realized we needed to do something more. So we have created a program called Garden Relief Initiative, where we're asking gardeners, if you garden, please enlarge your garden. If you haven't gardened before, please start. And when you harvest that garden, please, please donate 10% of it to your local food pantries. They are woefully in need of fresh produce. They're in need of everything, but fresh produce is particularly an issue. We work with 5 different food pantries in the community with our food rescue. But what we're doing in support of the Garden Relief Initiative, if you go to our Facebook page, which is Hazon Detroit, you can sign, there's a form to sign up with, and we will deliver to your doorstep 2 5-gallon buckets of compost, as well as 3 packets of seeds. And you don't have to see us, you don't have to be there. Just the form allows you to tell us where to drop it off. And it's a way of helping people and encouraging people to get outside and to grow. And in the process for basically us as neighbors, helping our neighbors. We have delivered to over 80 homes in 27 different cities, and this will be an ongoing program. Please know, while we're stuck in our homes, I am not. I am driving around every day. I am safe, I am healthy, but I see so much devastation out there. So many people in need, so many people going without food, and so many people who are just hungry. And we all have the ability to do something. And all it requires is going outside and working on, within our beautiful earth. So Facebook page again, Hazon Detroit, sign up, and we will bring you compost as well as seeds. So thank you.
Thank you, Ren. I have a quick question for you. So we are going to attempt, we have, like a lot of people in the area, have a lot of wildlife in the back. So we don't have the full get up to screen them out or anything. So is there any opportunity, we're going to try again this year, but to maybe be a seed? So we've started here a lot of things from seed, but is there an opportunity to get plants to people that then can grow and take care of stuff?
Yes, we have volunteers who are presently growing 200 tomato seedlings as well as some eggplant. We will be notifying via our Facebook page when those are available. If we're presently talking with the MSU Extension to see what we can do with them. We're actually partnering, hoping to partner with a 4-H group, because 4-Hers cannot do anything right now. And we're hoping to have them be part of the garden relief. But as we hear of seedlings available, we will post it on our Facebook, and we will be delivering those as well. And if upon harvest you need someone to take it to the food pantries, give us a call. We will do that as we are doing it presently.
I have a lot of seedlings as well, so yeah.
Beautiful. Let me know, and we'll publicize it.
Okay.
And I did spell Hazon for you guys in the chat. It's Hazone, like right?
No E. Hazon.
I always do it wrong. Hazon.
Okay.
Hazon as E, so Hazon.
Either that or people say Hazon.
Yeah.
So phonetically, if it makes more sense for Hazon, say it. I don't care.
There, I fixed it in the chat.
Thanks.
And we'll include links as well in that email for you guys when we send the email out. All right, well, great. Thank you for your effort with that, Ren. And I was just going to pop up, next meeting will be online, same format as well, Monday, May 18th. So we're back to Monday's schedule at 6:30, and it'll be the same setup as this time. You can either dial in via phone, but we do ask that you pre-register via Zoom, and you'll be able to get the link either from Facebook, Instagram, or from our website. All right.
So on a high note, to end things, what do you say to someone that offers you a barrel of oil?
Is this a dad joke, Mark? Come on.
No tanks.
I knew it was a dad joke. I just knew it.
Well, that's my specialty. Thank you for recognizing it.
There you go. Nice. Well, that's good, because I know we did say we were going to end meetings with shout outs. Jokes are great too. So along those notes, yeah, does anybody have anything else to share their Earth Day joke, environmental humor, or shout out for anything? It doesn't have to be environment specific. Obviously, with everything going on, we've got a lot of heroes.
It's been startling to see the statistics of, now that we can't do the normal things we do in our lives, how much better off the environment is for it. And hopefully that will be remembered.
That's true, Sybil. China, what 25% they think of, less gas being emitted. There is a movie out. Michael Moore has a new movie out. I caught him last night on Late Night Talk, and it's a free movie on Michael Moore, whatever his YouTube channel is. He couldn't even remember the name of his channel, but I think it's called The Planet Human. He said he's been working on it for the last couple of years, and he said this is a good time to release it. It's it's a free movie, and so go check it out. The Planet Human, I believe, is the name of it.
It was actually, we saw that same interview, and it was called Planet of the Humans, like Planet of the Apes.
Oh, I stand corrected.
And we watched it today, and it was super depressing. Like the gist of it was that it took a lot of things that are green initiatives and explained where their funding comes from and how they're not as green as you think they are, and how they're actually using up a lot of fossil fuels to produce the green thing. It just was, I don't even know what to think anymore. You know, it was, I'd love all of everybody to have that be your homework. Watch it, and let's get together and talk about what we feel it was saying, because it was really depressing.
There was another one I did watch today on Discovery, is the story of plastic, which it is a 2-hour documentary. And there was a lot of great stuff, very similar to Plastic Ocean, just really kind of puts out there the issue, but talked a lot about the life cycle of it. And we hear a lot about when it gets into your hands and afterwards where it goes, but learning about the upfront. So if you have Hulu or anything like that, you might still be able to access it. It ran at 2 o'clock today. And we're also going to look to see if we might be able to do a screening of it down the road through EcoHV. Well, thank you again, Christian, and for everyone joining. And we hope that you're all being safe and staying safe. And we look forward to seeing you on Monday, May 18th. Thank you, and have a great night.